Welcome to CSS tutorial part 3. If you haven't watched part 1 and part 2, I would recommend that you watch those parts first and then continue with part 3. I will leave part 1 and part 2 links down in the description, so please go check that out. Now let's get started with part 3. CSS colors. A color can be applied as a background color, text color, or border color. We're going to go over an example for each of these CSS properties. Before defining color properties, we're going to have some HTML. So I'm going to have a div, apply a class box, some example text in between. Now to apply the CSS, I'm going to go into my CSS file, call my class. First color property is background color. We can use color name or a hex value. I'm simply going to be using hex value. So that's our background color. Second property is border color. Before we define a border color, first we have to define a border. So we can define border by calling border property 2 pixels solid. That's our border. We can have the border color defined here. Or we can simply call border color property and then take this value color and apply it in here. Text color property starts with color, and then we're gonna apply the same color as our border. So that's our text color. These are CSS color properties: background color, border color, and text color. CSS borders. A border in CSS can be applied using border style property. First, let's define our HTML. I'm going to define class border1 and sample text, and we're gonna have border2, 3, 4, and 5. Now to apply CSS, we're gonna head to our CSS file. I'm going to call border1. We're gonna have first style that's solid. I'm going to have breaks. Okay. You can simply copy this, paste, dot it, dashed, double. We can also have border style as none or hidden. For instance, if you want to hide the border of certain HTML element. So these are CSS borders, and this is how we define styling to a border. CSS margins and paddings. Margins can be applied around HTML element, whereas paddings can be applied around HTML element content. Let's go over examples for each of these. We're going to start by defining our HTML. I'm just going to use class box, which we have defined previously. Now to apply margins and paddings, I'm going to head to my CSS file. Margins and paddings can be applied on each side of an element, top, bottom, left, or right. Let's begin with margin. We can have margin top of 10 pixels, margin bottom of 10 pixels, margin left of 5 pixels, and margin right of 5 pixels. So this will create space around this div tag in this example, and it will have 10 pixels of margin top and bottom and 5 pixels of margin left and right. Now we can have margin defined individually by calling specific side, or we can just have property margin and call all these 4 property within. So we can have top 10 pixels, right 5 pixels, bottom 10 pixels, and left 5 pixels. This works exactly same as defining these 4 properties individually. Now if you have it like this, it's very important to remember the direction. So this is top, right, bottom, and left. If you're a beginner, it might be a bit difficult to remember, but with some practice, you can easily achieve this as well. So this is how we can define margins. Padding works the same. So we can have padding top of 10 pixels, padding bottom of 10 pixels, padding left of 5 pixels, and padding right of 5 pixels. So padding can be used to create space around the HTML element content. Is within this div, inside. Margin is outside and padding is inside. And we can also have padding property where we can have top, right, bottom, or left. So we can either define like this or like this. Both work exactly the same. So this is how we can define paddings. Now, margin and padding can be applied individually. So in that case, it might be a good idea to use something like this. So you can just have padding top and margin bottom, for example, right? In that case, you probably don't want to use something like this. Maybe you want to call individually by calling that I'm defining margin top of 10 pixels or padding bottom of 10 pixels. That can be something to keep in mind on what approach to use. Thank you for watching CSS tutorial part 3. If you want to continue learning, subscribe to Enroll Mastery channel and hit that bell icon so you can get notification on latest video uploads. I will see you next time.